Recently voted the #1 show among Needham Real Estate enthusiasts. You are watching What's My House Worth? My name is Rob Tickton. This right here is Ryan McDonald. We are with Hawthorne Real Estate. We build homes in Needham. We also provide brokerage services in Needham. Since we do both, I would say that calls us...
I'd say experts.
Or versatile. Anyway, we're going to be going over February sales data this month's show. We're going to do it like we always do it. We're going to look at all the data, kind of grouped up into one, Ryan, and then we're going to look at it on an individual basis. We're going to start with the lowest sales price over the course of the last month, and then build our way up to what we like to call...
The big seller.
The big seller, that's right. So without any further ado, let's take a look at the sales data. And Ryan, as we observe the 12 sales that took place, what comes to mind? Anything in particular?
I mean, it's up 1 from last month. We had 11 in January, 12 homes sold in February of 2014, single families per MLS.
Very good.
Our average list price at a healthy $991,000, which is a bit below our $1 million mark from last month, but still an average list price in the high nines with an average sales price just a hair lower at $974. That's holding pretty steady from last month, as is the percentages. So our sales prices as a percentage of list and original list, which I think is the more telling stat, at 98, 97, and those are in the same levels as they were last month. But Rob,
yes,
again,
sales price per square foot.
My goodness, down to 346 this month, down from 354,
but it's still high.
Still high.
Yes.
And we have the days on market at 59, down from 67 from last month. So that's still, you're turning around your inventory in less than 2 months.
Right. We talk about how this is going to be a red hot kind of spring real estate market. And 12 sales doesn't seem like a lot, but it is February, and I think it's just things are starting to get rolling a little bit. The one thing I do notice about that is the average sales price, the average list price of the homes that are selling under $1 million. But as we'll see a little bit later in the show, the vast majority of the houses on the market are over $1 million.
True.
So still, you get to the lower price point, that's the stuff that turns, right? More than the stuff that's priced over $1 million.
Yep.
Over the course of the last 6 months, let's take a look at the trend and see if anything jumps out at us there. And certainly things have quieted down a little bit since December. In fact, January and February combined, still we fall 5 sales short.
Yeah, I mean, 3 of the last 4 months have been under 15 sales. I mean, with 12 being the high number. But as we said last month, and we're going to repeat it again this month, this is not cause for alarm. This is pretty normal considering the time of year that we are in.
Especially this time of year, right? You wonder how much snow we've had and how cold it's been, how much people have just been like, I want to wait until it warms up a little bit. Unfortunate part is it might not ever warm up.
No, I think we're on the dawn of a new ice age.
It's possible. It feels that way. But it also could be a sign that we have a lot of pent-up demand, which we're seeing kind of on the streets, so to speak, and things could go off the charts.
Yeah, I think, like you're saying, people aren't in a huge hurry to kind of force their house to the market in late February, early March, when it's still so nasty out there. And people are kind of taking their time getting prepared, and then they'll be ready to go right around. I would look to that St. Patrick's Day as a barometer of when you might see some activity.
And hopefully see the temperatures begin to rise.
Yeah.
Here in Needham, February historical sales is next up on the docket, and February, as you said, is historically not a lights out month, and 12 seems to be pretty much within the normal range, the lowest being in February 11, the peak for February 12, but what do we know about February 12, Ryan?
Right, it was a leap year, so
leap
you
year.
do have that extra day.
Yeah, and there might have been 7 sales that day.
You might have just wanted to sell your house on the 29th just for kicks.
Right. But I'm guessing that's probably an aberration and doesn't...
Possibly.
Not a strong correlation.
But let's continue to focus on it.
Yeah, because it's fun. We like talking about leap year. Right. Okay, with this in mind, it's time to dive into the individual sales in Needham, starting with the low sales price, working our way up, and we're starting low.
Yeah.
Right? 450 is a number that's dipping down there a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes we forget that there's still are sales in the 4s in Needham.
That's right, and
but
here's
here
one
go.
at 980 Greendale on a big lot.
I know, on a 12,197 square foot lot. You have a sale of 980 Greendale, and I think this might be a redevelopment sale.
It is.
That's confirmed?
Confirmed.
Good. So it's a small house on a big lot with that price point that is the recipe for a redevelopment type deal, and this is what we have here. So we'll keep an eye on that one, and maybe we will be revisiting 980 Greendale in 6 to 8 months.
Well, let's do this little exercise. So we see it's a land sale for $450,000, right? When you see that land sale, what in your mind, don't say it out loud, think about it, do you think that
How
the
will they
sellout
know?
has to be? Well, right.
Eventually, I'll say it out loud.
We'll say it at the same time.
Oh, fun.
So what do you think the projected sales price is going to be for that project to be a viable project? Do you have a number? I have one.
Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
1,
1.25. Ooh, interesting. Okay. So
'Cause I think what's going to happen here is you're going to see you're going 1.25, and I'm envisioning the type of house that you're talking about here. What I'm talking about doing is maybe a slightly smaller house, keeping it within the let's try to get something for 1 to 1.1, capturing that type of buyer, which I think it would be the strategy on this lot.
right. So you have yours at 1.1. I have mine at 1.25. We'll revisit this maybe.
Oh, that's
We'll
gonna
have a black and white flashback.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. It'll be
will
like
be.
an episode of Family Ties.
And we'll see. Maybe we can make some kind of wager by the end of the show.
Okay.
Put something on it. So that's
Great.
980 Greendale redevelopment project. Next up is 30 Brookside Road. This is a house I know you and I both had the opportunity to see on the broker tour some months back. Sells for $522,500. You like that sales price for that house?
Yeah, I mean I do. It's one of those little neighborhoods behind kind of Volante Farms, near Wellesley. The thing about this is there's nothing across the street from it. You remember there's just open space across the street.
Right, but
Which
a
is
busy,
kinda-
but a busier.
Right, a busy road, but I kind of like that.
Yeah.
And you remember the floor plan on the first floor was a little weird.
It was
It was
unique.
Yeah, to say the
Yes.
least.
I noticed it on the listing sheet when I was researching the show, but I don't really recall what made
Yeah,
it.
it just didn't have a normal flow to it.
It didn't go around in the
Yeah.
back. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was odd.
Right.
But not to say in a positive or a negative way. It was when you look at it from the street, it's not what you would expect when you walked inside.
Interesting.
But the house needed some work. Updates throughout, I would say, but in the low fives. And again, I mean, this is just numbers that you're not accustomed to seeing in the last several months. So there you go.
Yeah, new roof and new furnace too. Needed some updates throughout, but new roof and new furnace
Yeah,
in the
nice
house.
sun porch. I like sun porch.
That counts for something. 12 Hillcrest is next up on our tour through the houses that sold in Needham in February, single family per MLS. This house on 12 Hillcrest Road is a house I had the opportunity to see, and there were 2 strikes on this house right out of the gate. 2 strikes, 2 things working against it. One was the lot size, very small lot, and number 2 was, you know what number 2 was?
Probably right next to Hazel's.
Next door to Hazel's. So considering you had that working against you, 680, pretty good number for this one. And I will say this about the house: it was move-in condition.
Yep.
It was redone pretty extensively in 2000. Had a nice flow to it. Had nice finished space in the basement. Had a lot going for it. I think had this house been a little further up on Hillcrest, A, and B, I think if it went on the market in say March instead of December, I think you'd be looking at probably 760.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I do. I think if this house was further up the road,
Well, that's a big part of it.
that's a big part of
That's
it.
bigger than the time difference.
Agreed. I would say probably 50 for the location change, maybe 30 for the time change. That's what we call a back of the envelope calculation.
Wow,
yeah.
that is
You like that?
rudimentary.
Yeah. Well, as far as
But-
you know.
Yeah, true. And completely unable to prove.
No. Well, that's why. Right. But
Great.
it was a nice house, and somebody could just move right in and didn't have to do anything to it, and that's always a good thing when you can get that in the 6s in Needham. And despite the fact that it was next to Hazel's, considered to be a good location, right? And Broadmeadow School.
I mean, from a commuter standpoint, you grabbing your coffee and getting on the train.
That's
Boom.
right. That's right.
So what did you think? This is one thing that jumped off the listing sheet to me. It was advertised as having a townhouse feel.
Right. I'm guessing the point you're going to make is, do you want to say that for the listing of a
Yeah.
single-family house?
Right.
Right. That's interesting.
I don't know. That's something that caught my eye.
Right.
But
I mean, I can see if you're listing a townhouse, making it say it feels like a single family.
Right.
But if you have a single family, do you want to say it feels
Yeah.
like a townhouse?
right.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
Good observation, Ryan.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that.
76 Ridgeway Avenue is next up on our list, and
Should we admit that neither one of us saw this house?
Yes.
Okay.
But
in fairness to the audience.
sometimes a listing sheet comes up and you notice things on it.
Yeah.
And in this one, it was you had the out of town agent, which I always kind of notice. The fact that there was a disclosure on there that the seller never occupied the house,
Yep.
which is weird a
Yep,
little
saw
bit.
that.
And then lastly, when it says buyer to do all due diligence.
Right. It's like, what are we looking for?
Right. Right.
It's like an Easter egg hunt. Did you hide something in the house that we need to now find?
Right. Like,
Yeah.
whoa. Like you're
Right.
basically admitting something by not admitting something. So I just,
like
you know,
that.
you see these things and then it gets listed for $727.5 and then it sells for $790 and it just, there's a lot going on in this listing. Would you agree?
I would. And the only thing that we can't really comment on is what the house looked like.
That's just a small component, very small. But it was a lot of space.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And it looked like
2,600 square feet.
it
4
looked like-
beds, 3 baths.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
And the kitchen
And a cool
looked,
area. That's a neat little spot. You know where it is on the top of that hill there?
Yes.
Back behind Newberry Park. That's
Yeah,
nice.
I do. It's a really good spot. So probably the most kind of enigmatic listing that we'll be observing this
Right.
month. Agreed?
Right.
70 Gay Street, next up. Now this is a house that we did see.
Yes, we did.
Feeling pretty good about that, and that's why I'm comfortable calling it
The deal of the month.
my deal of the month for the buyer. I think 70 Gay Street is quite a good deal at 805.
All right, let's hear why.
Okay, Ryan, thanks for asking. I think you had a lot of nice built-ins in this house. It was very nicely finished. 4 bedrooms up top, really nice master bath, really nice master closet. The attached garage is a bonus. I think one of the things that held this back was the fact that there wasn't much in the way of a backyard, and it was a little close to the water, which I think is, not for everybody.
Yeah, why don't you talk about the location where it was?
The location on Gay Street?
Well, overlooking the Sportsman Club.
Right, exactly. And I think they referred to it as there were peaceful views of the skating pond.
Yes.
Which is nice. I like
Yeah,
that. I like the
definitely.
way that was worded. There's a homeowner's fee. Did you see that?
Yes.
An annual homeowner's fee of, I think it was $125 a year, which is interesting, different, unique. But I think from what we're seeing in February and March, I think this house comes on the market in the spring. I think you're going to see a lot of demand on it. And I don't think you're going to see a situation where it would go on for $829 and it would sell for $805. I think you'd have a couple of offers, and I think it would hit close to that list price. So I think in just a very, very short period of time, they've already built up 10, 20 grand
Yeah.
equity.
And I think, not to, pile on to your deal of the month, because I know you're very sensitive about that.
No,
but
we appreciate that.
But
here once in a
I
while.
think that part of what may have held this back too is the pond. And some people like me, for instance, I grew up in a property like this that had water. We had a river, which we embraced and we loved. We all learned to skate. It was great. Some people might view that as, oh my gosh, I got to keep my eye on my kids,
Right.
my dog, my whatever. And
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
it's kind of like a pool. Like some people really, really like it. Other people may feel that it's an encumbrance, and it might just eliminate a sliver of the market that keeps it from going as a lights out sale.
Agreed. No, I think that's a good observation. I think it's very true. And either way, pond or no pond, I like it as my
Yeah.
deal of the month.
Yeah, I'm in.
Thanks. Would you have considered that for your deal of the month? Had
Well,
I
yeah,
not-
you jumped all over it.
I do.
mean,
I always
what can do?
pick it first.
Yeah.
That's the bonus I get for doing all the prep work for the show. 1297 Great Plain Avenue. The sellers of this house got their bread buttered for $805. $859, excuse me, was the list.
Yeah, and this one was under agreement twice before finally going under agreement for good and ultimately leading to a sale. I think the issue here with this house, other than it being on Great Plain Ave, which can turn some people off, is that the master suite, if you remember,
Oh, yeah.
was like completely isolated from the rest of the house.
Right.
So it was almost like an in-law apartment.
Right.
It had
And it could be used as an in-law, is how they
Yeah,
touted
definitely.
it.
And
Right.
it had a den attached to it, which was nice, and then it had a master bed, a master bath, a very nice little, isolated area for the master. But if you have a young child or young children, and I mean, you're trekking across the house to get them in the middle of the night or in the morning or whenever. So I think that probably wouldn't work for a lot of people with those types of families. So it kind of pigeonholed a buyer, which, as you know, can always lead to a longer sales cycle.
Agreed. But I think it's telling that it was on the market for 216 days and still managed to sell for 94% of original list.
Yeah.
Like you see a house that's on for that long and it's on and off. I mean, you almost feel like the eventual sale price feels like a fire sale almost compared to where it was originally listed. But this thing originally listed $859, they still get $805.
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean, they had
true.
to be delighted.
True.
It took a while. but-
Relieved might be the word.
Yeah, relieved.
I mean, one other thing, and this is just a little observation. When I walked down in that basement, all over the basement, rat poison, rodent traps. No buyer wants to see that when they're walking in. And this was on the broker tour when I saw it, and I saw it again with buyers at an open house. And it was the same thing, and I think that's just, you're just asking for trouble.
Oh,
you
there are
know.
people that will see that and
Right,
that's it.
That's it. We're done. So I mean, that's low hanging fruit that you want to clean that up as a seller. I wouldn't wait for your real estate agent to suggest it. I just would be out in front of that and just, you're constantly trying to present your house in its best light, and that's certainly not a way to do that.
370 Honeywell Street is next up on our tour. Wait a minute. Hold on. What is that?
Well, there's two things of that.
Yeah,
That's a
I
deal
know.
of the month for this guy, but it's also, isn't that a townhouse?
Wait a minute. Is there a way we can zoom out that picture? It looks like it might be is that attached? I
Yeah.
think you're right.
Yeah. So this is, I mean,
Have we been hoodwinked?
right? The wool has been pulled over our eyes. So we're
Wow.
talking about
Darn
a
it.
townhouse, right? So we always predicate the show is based on single family sales, but this was listed as a single family.
So
all right, there's only 12 sales to talk about, you know. So what are we gonna do? Here we are talking about 370 Honeywell Street, which is my deal of the month. Believe it or not, shockingly for the who.
it would be for I know this, for the seller.
Yes, and I really, I mean, this is great. This townhouse was built in 1999, so
Yeah.
it's, you know, relatively new, but it's not like lights out new, great amenities. It's the bomb.
A lot of space too.
Space, fine, but my point is, if you have $800,000, go buy Gay Street, you know, for $805, and it's a really nice single-family home on a great piece of property, as opposed to a not brand new condo. I mean, I look at the condo alternative as you can get, you know, for less money, you're getting, you know, more for it. But I mean, I think if you give me $800,000, I can buy a really nice single family in a good location in Needham, as opposed to a townhouse. So that's why I guess I don't love the strategy of buying the expensive townhouse in Needham when there are single family options.
Right, unless location was really important to these folks and they needed to be
Yeah.
located near the heights.
Sure.
You know,
No, of
accessibility
course.
to
There's always reasons, obviously, if they play into every. But in my, you know, personal opinion, if I were gonna manage somebody's purchase in the eights, I would be, you know, I'd be suggesting single family alternatives.
Right, and I appreciate you using my deal of the month as a point of reference.
Yeah.
And talking about your deal of the month.
Yeah, and even you know, we'll get to it next. And 65 Blacksmith for a little bit more money. I mean, it's less space, but there's the finished basement there, which we'll talk about. But I just think that these are buys that I think in the long run will pay off a little more than a townhouse on
Yeah,
Honeywell.
no, that's. I think you're spot on. And speaking of Blacksmith, that's next up, 65 Blacksmith Drive. This one sold for $834,000. Actually, we saw this on the same day that we saw 70 Gay Street. I remember had a lot of conversations about kind of what we thought was priced better and what we liked better. And the one thing that I, without question, remember about this listing was the basement.
Yep.
Right. That's
Yeah.
what really jumped out. It was the quintessential man cave, if
Right.
you will, with the bar down there and the sports
game room.
memorabilia and
Uh-huh.
the game room. And so I think that was one of the things that probably might have nudged the buyers in that direction, if depending on what they were looking for. But it was certainly a nice feature, and it had a lot of nice features. You know, it felt like it was some of the house was redone, some of it wasn't. It felt a little bit disjointed, in like you'd walk into one bathroom, it looked one way, and you'd walk in another part of the house that looked completely different in terms of when it was redone. But I agree. I mean, I think it was good space. The location is good. It's a good spot. It's close to town. And you're right. I mean, if I have Honeywell and I have Blacksmith and they're kind of side by side, why not pay the extra $20,000 and have Blacksmith?
Yeah.
We're gonna go back to Hillcrest. How do you feel about that? You
Why
want to go?
not? Sure.
All right. So
Yeah.
let's go a little bit further. Let's get away from Hazel's and just move up a little bit on 70 Hillcrest
Okay.
and find a house that's a very interesting listing. 70 Hillcrest Road. Don't see many 1.1 plus $1 million sales on lots that are 5,600 square feet.
Right.
Right.
And I think what you would expect to see and what you did see is a lot of vertical space.
Right. Vertical space.
So
correct.
4 finished floors.
And there were just 3 bedrooms on the second floor.
Right. Right.
But you had potentially a 4th bedroom on the
Yep.
3rd floor.
Yep.
Right.
And the finished basement. It was a home that was built and occupied by the builder. So it's one of those where the builder resides there for a couple of years and then moves on.
For what purpose do we think? Typically.
It's to reduce your taxes as the builder turns your ordinary income into capital gains.
Correct.
So, I mean, the location, we talked about it when we talked about 12 Hillcrest. It's a nice commuter spot. And the proximity to Hazel's, I think, turns from a a negative to a positive
Right.
when there's 7 houses in between you. So again, it's a lot of space on a small lot, but it's under 1.2 and it's relatively new.
Yeah, builder bought this lot for $425 in 2010. Good deal in hindsight, right?
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah.
638 South Street is next up on the list. This is a house, kind of a pretty long history as far as what it did on the market. It was on for 145 originally. A couple price reductions. They pull it off the market. They do some renovations. Ultimately sells for 145,
Right.
which is what it was on the market for in the first place. But some nice renovations in this house. I really liked this house. I thought it was a really neat layout. And it was a good piece of land. It's on South Street. I thought it had a lot going for it. The kitchen was great. It had the high ceilings on the second floor, which I thought was pretty unique. It was a unique layout, and sometimes unique layout is a kind of a nice way of saying it's not so great of a layout. But I think in this case, it was a really good layout.
Yeah. What'd you think of the butcher block counter? Now it had a big marble island in the kitchen, but the perimeter cooking space and prep space was all butcher block. What did you think about that?
It's not for me.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think that's a kind of a personal preference thing.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think of it, Ryan?
Again, I think I have the same. If I were going to do it, I'd probably flip that around and do the marble or the granite around the perimeter and the butcher block on the island, which is your ideal prep space.
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
we weren't asked.
No.
No.
And probably better for everybody that we weren't, because it would have just muddied the waters.
We are busybodies.
Without question. And when he says we, he means him. 20 Ardmore Road is, a few seasons ago, we would have referred to that as not our big seller, because there's one more after this. It was a trick question, and you nailed it.
By a blank stare.
Well executed, Ryan. Well executed.
Okay, it's 20 Ardmore, Rob. Go for it.
This is an artist rendering, if you will. 23,000 square foot lot in a location that we've seen a lot of new construction over the past 18
that's a nice little pocket of new
months.
houses. Sure.
Yeah, a lot.
Walking trail to Elliott.
That's right. That's a big bonus.
It is. It's a really nice bonus, actually.
It's, close to the Wellesley line, if you will.
Yeah, it's way easier to walk to Elliott from this house than to drive to Elliott.
And it's a good commuter location, because you can just slip right onto Route 9, hop onto 128, and it's, we've talked about communities before where the people who live there really love it, and I think this is one of those communities.
I would agree, certainly.
Anything else to say about 20 Ardmore Road?
Yeah, just that it was purchased by the developer for $600 back in July, and I think if that sale were to take place tomorrow, it would be high sixes at the least, if not 7.
Right.
Which is shocking.
Which is shocking, but also kind of the theme, I feel like. Lastly, 241 Fox Hill Road. If this were a few seasons ago, Ryan, this would have been referred to as
our big seller.
Nailed it. Well done. I am kind of fascinated by this listing, and I'm wondering as we look at the specs here, sells for 187, listed for 1949, days on market 41, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Is there anything that you see on there that would lead you to understand why I'm fascinated by it?
Well, a couple things. First of all, it's a 3-bedroom.
Okay, that's it.
So it's, even the listing remarks, we could spend a show, I think, on those, because it has my couple buzzwords that really jump out at me.
Oh, don't worry. I've written one down just to see if I could poke you a little bit.
I bet. The dreaded cookie cutter and following it up with McMansion. So it's using cookie cutter to modify McMansion.
Okay, don't need to bring up cookie cutter.
Which is, you want to get my dander up, and that's where you go. Nobody likes cookie cutters. Nobody likes McMansions. The key as a developer and a builder and an architect and a designer is to build something that doesn't fall into that category.
Right.
So yeah, this is definitely an option, an alternative to a cookie cutter or McMansion, but it's also an alternative to a very nicely built new home. But then I think the gap gets very quickly shortened. The other thing I liked about this was the use of the word discerning. So do we ever know what discerning means? Do we want to take a minute and discuss that?
Sure. Discerning
it means showing good judgment or understanding. It means perceptive. It means sharp. It means discriminating. So it's a very subtle way of saying this house is for the sophisticated buyer.
Right, who knows of elegance and extravagance.
And to the listing agent's credit, this is a really cool house. There's no question about it.
Right, so you thought it was a correctly...
An apt description.
All right, good.
But it's sort of tongue-in-cheek. But it's the 3 bedrooms here are really the key. So what would this house be worth with 4 bedrooms? It has unfinished space on the second floor.
I don't think it'd be worth much more if it was 4 bedrooms.
I think it would. I think it almost would have been better off adding that 4th bedroom, because you know how many buyers are probably turned away by the fact that there's only 3 bedrooms?
Probably not many. I mean, if you go back 4 years, 4 years, and you look at the next highest selling 3-bedroom house in Needham, it was $600,000 less than this listing. It was 1.2 and change, and this is 1.8 and change. I mean, how much higher are you going to go with? And it was on the market for 41 days. I mean,
So here's the challenge for owner of 241 Fox Hill. Add that 4th bedroom, put it on the market, see what happens.
Yeah.
You don't have to move, let's just see what happens.
Yeah,
just
get it under agreement and then back out.
But I'd be curious. I think you'd probably be looking at a $2 million home.
Interesting. Unfortunately, we'll never know.
We might.
True.
Someday. We'll keep an eye on it.
Market Snapshot is up next, where we take a look at the current real estate market and see what direction it seems to be headed towards. And I don't know, Ryan, I might be crazy, but it seems like it's headed in a good direction for the health of the Needham real estate market.
I would agree. I mean, the numbers, they speak for themselves. We have more inventory. We've got more homes under agreement. The average listing price is going up. The days on market, it's at 114. But I mean, remember, the days on market is somewhat skewed because there's some homes that have been on for a long time that are skewing those numbers.
Right.
And the average list price per square foot at $342.
Which continues to be less than the average sales price.
Right. And we don't have enough viewers.
That's crazy.
I know, but it's
because they're bigger, more expensive homes.
Right.
But still, it's got to be very rare, especially in back-to-back months, to see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the average list price is less than the average sales
No,
price.
they heard you.
Sure. Yeah. I'll say it again.
You don't need to read back to us.
Okay, real quick. Just want to hop on. We got a little bonus time, Ryan. What does bonus time mean?
It means we're going to cover something that either we're thinking about, we're seeing, or we're hearing.
I like it. Well put. Yeah. We're going to talk about ballparks.
Like baseball? It is spring training. So baseball?
Yeah, we're going to talk about ballparks.
Nice. I like baseball.
Do you know what I mean when I say ballpark? I don't mean baseball, Ryan. Why don't you educate the viewers as to what I mean?
Well, if I think I'm reading you correctly,
yeah.
I think what we're talking about, some of the things that Rob and I talk about and with our clients rather is you start looking in a situation where there isn't a lot of inventory on the market. Mm-hmm. You have buyers that come to you and they have a budget, say their budget is like 1 to 1.2, and they're looking for homes in that budget, and there aren't many to look at.
Right.
So what we sometimes do is we encourage them, let's look at homes that maybe are in the 6s and 7s that with your budget being 1 to 1.2, you could make improvements to, whether it be modifications to the existing, add on, etc. And then ultimately you'll end up with a home in the value of what your current budget is.
Right. So I think what you're saying is if somebody can spend $1.2 million, maybe they should look at a house that's $700,000, and they could basically pour in $500,000 to get to that same place.
Right.
But at that point have a newer home or newer feeling home, customizations, things like that. So then the next question is, as they walk through these homes, is okay, well, what if I want to do this? What if I want to do that? So that's a question we get all the time, not just from these folks, but from a lot of folks saying, I want to renovate a kitchen. What's that going to cost me?
Right, and we make our own bed with that. I mean, we're putting ourselves in a position to be constantly asked for the dreaded ballpark.
Right, and so what we always do is say, the first thing is, well, it depends, right?
Right.
But there are some numbers that we like to think about when we talk about things such as these. So when you talk about, renovating a kitchen, right? What are we talking here?
I mean, the kitchen is the one where, you always say to people, you can spend $50,000 to $75,000 on your cabinets, your appliances, your countertops without even a worker even entering the house. So like right off the bat, you're talking about like $100,000 for your kitchen almost sometimes.
You're right, 100. Oh yeah,
so
without question.
These are the types of conversations that we're having: kitchens, baths, adding on versus staying within the 4 walls. I mean, obviously, anytime you add square footage, your budget goes up significantly.
Significantly, and I think that's the thing I always try to impress upon people is if you can do your renovation within the 4 walls of your home, then you can have a tremendous cost savings as opposed to adding on and then renovating, because that's another layer. You're talking about foundation, you're talking about site work, you're talking about framing. I mean, a lot of different factors.
Or even just going up versus going out.
Right. But just trying to stay within that that footprint is a big factor. So
we just opened a can of worms.
I know. Well, maybe we can follow it up with some more specifics. Our viewers can call us, they can email us, ask questions like this. How would they reach us if they wanted to do that, Ryan?
Call us anytime at 781-707-6564, or send us an email to rob.ryan@hawthornre.com.
Right, but for now, that does it for this installment of What's My House Worth? I am Rob, this is Ryan. We will see you when it's a little bit warmer.
Hopefully.